Well, thank you, everyone. And then again, welcome. We're really delighted to have all of our veterans speaking today from their own experience and their journeys to medicine. And so we'll get started with Sangi, and whoever wants to go after that could just take turns. So,
Hello, my name is Sanjay Park. My friends call me Jay. You can call me Jay. I go to Mount Sinai, fourth year. I did undergrad. I did undergrad at Hunter College. I'm going into diagnostic radiology. Currently, I'm interviewing for programs, and I hopefully graduate next year. Fun fact about me: I was stationed in Hawaii. I was with the U.S. Army, and I was stationed in Hawaii and had a great time there. So I'll popcorn it to Julia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julia. I'm a fourth year medical student at Icahn School of Medicine, Mount Sinai. I'm currently on leave of absence, so I'm not applying this year, but hopefully I'll be back next year to apply. Um, so I was in the U.S. Army for about 5 years. I was a medic. I was stationed in Korea and Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. And I had a great time there as a medic. I went to Smith College for undergrad, and I went to Columbia University for a post-bac program, and I linked to Mount Sinai right after. So yeah, fun fact about me, I have a 10-year-old dog. She is my baby. So if you guys have a dog picture, whatever, welcome to share.
what kind of dogs?
I have a white poodle. She's about 12 pounds. Really cute. Yeah. Oh, I have to pluck horn to Tyrone.
Thanks, Julia. Hi, everyone. I'm Tyrone Young. I'm a third year medical student at Mount Sinai as well. I went to West Point undergrad, commissioned to the Army from there, and then I served primarily as a health physicist for the Army, primarily out of Germany, all over Europe. Fun fact. After I got out of the Army, I worked on a vineyard in Portugal for a little over a month, which was super cool. Being the only person that spoke English, that was an interesting experience. And I'm also, I guess, primarily interested in neurosurgery.
I'll go. I'll take it. I'm Noah. I'm a first year at Mount Sinai. I was in the Marines. I was a combat engineer from 2014 to 2018. I was stationed in Okinawa and then California. When I got out, I started at community college, actually, in my hometown, Rockland Community College, and then transferred to Drexel University to finish out my undergrad. Um, and I'm interested in family medicine. And then a fun fact about me, uh, I went shark cage diving when I was in Australia.
Too many scary movies for me to do that.
I can go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Lumnick. I'm originally from the Philadelphia area. Did my undergrad degree at the Naval Academy, graduating in 2015. And then I served 8 years in the Navy. The bulk of my time was actually spent in Europe. 4 of the years I was stationed on a ship in southern Spain. I was the navigator on the ship. We deployed 5 times. Did some diverse and interesting operations in that part of the world. And then my last 2 years, I was an ROTC instructor at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm at Mount Sinai Med School, interested in neurosurgery, and work with Tyrone on some projects. And interesting fact, I hate to tie the interesting fact to the military, but when I was on the ship, we were part of a group of ships that went and sailed above the north coast of Russia in the Arctic Circle for the first time since the Cold War. We did it in the late spring, so the sun never set when we were up there.
I thought you were going to say you don't know how to swim, but that's dark. All right. Who wants to go next?
I can go next. My name is Michael. I'm a third year medical student at UC Davis. I am originally from Ghana. Moved here about 12 years ago. Joined the Navy as a corpsman. Had a really great time. Um, let's see, fun fact about me. I have lived in about 10 different states since moving to the US. Um, and I am currently gravitating a little bit more towards orthopedic surgery.
I can go next. My name is Harry. I'm currently in the Bronx. I'm a fourth year medical student at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. Right now, I'm interviewing for psychiatry programs. Um, I've always been split between neuro and psychiatry, but only recently made the choice to go full psych. Um, I I'm from, my service is U.S. Army. Most of my time spent in the Army Reserve as a combat medic, and my main role was to provide combat life support, courses for the soldiers, qualify them so that they're eligible to deploy. Um, right now, don't have too many fun facts, but my friend and he's an Egyptian, and we're trying to really collaborate and come up with a new dish. And he's trying to do something with his Egyptian hawashi dish, and I'm trying to help him out. It's like basically like a beef, like wrapped in some sort of pastry. I'm trying to incorporate some Korean cuisine into that, like bulgogi or something like that. So really looking forward to just cooking with them. There's a lot of time in the fourth year, so it's just one of those things that I decided to do during the downtime. Thanks for having me.
So one of the big questions that always comes up with veterans is how how do you manage the most of you tend to be most of the veterans are non-traditional. So how do you navigate the whole undergraduate process as being, non-traditional slash, coming in from different experiences and not being the typical, undergraduate experience. So how have you each managed that?
I guess I'll go. Yeah, I mean, it's a little hard at first when you get out. You go from having like all of this. Sorry, my cat's like making a lot of noise right now. You go from having like all of this responsibility and like you're in a leadership position, and then pretty quickly you're just like a freshman in college. The people in your classes are 18. Like when I got out, all my friends were graduating from college, so it could feel like you're a little bit behind. But I think it's important to kind of just focus on yourself. Like the only race really is with yourself, and to kind of just humble yourself and realize like even though you may have all these life experiences that some of your classmates not, it's still you could still learn from them. And like yeah, just like humble yourself and try to not compare yourself too much to the people your age who seem like they're ahead of you.
Yeah, I really agree with Noah. I think one of the toughest part about being a non-traditional student was coming from having a very unique background that you can't compare with other pre-med students. And oftentimes it feels really lonely. Nobody can really tell you like if you're doing the right thing. I think that's the most difficult part. It's really difficult to have a benchmark. Um, so I think the best way to navigate forward is to have some kind of person who can give you guidance. I For that reason, when I did my post-bac program at Hunter College, I talked with my advisor pretty frequently. And the thing is, the advisor may not have all the answers for you, but it's good to talk with as many people as possible throughout your journey to medical school to have as much perspectives as possible.
For me, I did my undergrad before I go into the military, so I already had my undergrad under my belt. But with Michael and we went to a postgrad program together at Columbia, and they had huge veterans community, and they're really they had a lot of resources for veterans in terms of Yellow Ribbon Award, having, financial aid advisor who are aware of all the veterans benefit. And that was a huge, huge help. Because when I went into Columbia right after my ETS date, I had no idea how to apply for GI Bill and all of that. But they had it, they made the process so much easier for us. Doesn't mean that I did doesn't mean that there wasn't any hiccups in between, but they made it a lot easier. So if you're thinking about going into like undergrad after service or postbac program or anything, I would highly, highly recommend to select a school who's very experienced with veterans community itself. So yeah, just wanted to put it out there.
No, I really agree with the finding veteran community because when I got out as E5 and I was studying in pre-med and I was in medical school. And then like I sometimes go on Instagram and Facebook to check on like, my friends and stuff like that in the military. And I was shocked recently because the private that I was training as an E5 as sergeant, now she's like E6, like with the P. I'm like, we're gonna become an E7. So I feel like I haven't really accomplished a lot within like 7, 8 year time frame, but the soldiers who remain active duty, they're like promoting and doing great things, which is great. But sometimes I feel like I'm kind of stuck because I'm not like making any money. I mean, I do progress within the medical education, but sometimes I feel like I'm not accomplishing much. I feel like it's progress slow. So I sometimes feel like my life's kind of stopped a little bit, and then while others moving forward. But having the veteran community, having a lot of friends and in the similar situation, same school, different school, but medical education is long and stressful. But as a veteran, we're older, we're non-traditional, and then we have a similar struggles and problems at the sometimes, and we kind of like talk to each other, become friends, and share these kind of concerns and understand that like this is normal for us to be feeling like this sometimes, and that's how we can like strengthen each other's.
Similar to Julia, I went to undergrad before my service, but I feel like everyone hit fantastic points. The only thing that I'll add is something that's very different about being on the in the private sector, whether it's just schooling or a job, is that you may not realize it while you're in the military, but there's a ton of support to advocate and mentor you, whether you ask for it or not. Once you get out, you may not be in a place that has a veteran community, or you may not be a place that has faculty that's tailored toward understanding and taking care of veteran students. You you are your best advocate, and so you have to be willing to put yourself out there, find people that have similar interests to you, or mentors that are in a place where you want to be, and be persistent. Be hardworking, demonstrate that you're serious about what you want, and people will support you as long as you're willing to put up the work initially.
Anyone else wants to add to that?
Sorry, the only other thing I'll add is I think this is something, this may not be everyone, but this is something I've realized as I get older. When you're a younger soldier, you feel invincible, and you don't realize as you get older how important your immediate community is to you, whether it's like your peers in the military or your family. I think as you get older, those people become more important to you. It becomes harder to make friends. Like in the military, it's just like by a proximity, honestly. Like you're just going through these like very tough experiences with people. So these your peers, your soldiers become like your lifetime friends. It honestly becomes harder to do that as you get older, and so you value the long-standing relationships that you already have, and it only becomes prominent as you get older. So don't abandon those. Make sure you invest the time, because when you're going through the suck in medical school or undergrad or whatever post-bac program, those are the people, if you don't have a friend community, that you're going to fall back on.
Alrighty, great answers, everybody. So for the next question, someone asked, how old is everybody? They feel like they're too old after ETS to start pre-med and med school. They're currently pursuing PA, but can be swayed to pursue MD. Do you guys give your experience with this?
I guess I can. I'm 33 now. My initial goal coming out of the military training was to become an Army PA. I realized during my training at Fort Sam Houston as a combat medic, that would be kind of like my dream job to become an Army medic. I mean, Army PA. Um, it didn't pan out because of certain like security clearance issue. I joined as a foreigner. Apparently, at the time, it was really competitive program to get into the Army PA school, and rather than to wait like 6 more years to become an Army PA, I decided to go back to post-bac program. That's kind of how I went away from PA and just considered medical school. Um, Throughout my journey, I thought like I did become conscientious of my age, but I realized also that having spent like considerable amount of my 20s in the military and pursuing medical school, once I was actually in medical school, I realized this was actually really something that I wanted to do. And there's like no doubt going forward that this is something that I want to become, like a physician in the field of psychiatry. So I think this is a good question to ask, like, to what degree, like, what extent do you want to practice medicine? How much responsibility that you want? Because there is clear difference between being a PA and also a physician, and it's something that you need to be able to be comfortable answering if you are to apply to medical school, because it's, I think, one of the most common interview questions you'll probably expect, like once you're pursuing medical school.
I think I'm the oldest person here as a panelist. I'm 36. Because I had a little bit of career before the Army, and then I did the 4 years in the Army. I got out and then had to do a complete new biology degree for medical school. So I did 12 years of schooling, including medical school. But anyways, yeah, so my question was, so I thought about that as well. I'm very familiar with the nursing and nurse practitioners, PAs, and like physicians. I work with all of them, have a great respect for all of them because I worked as a medic as well. But one thing that really convinced me was like, I have like this mentor, psychiatrist. And, I was at the time was wondering about exact same thing. Like, should I become a PA or a nurse practitioner or a physician? But I don't want to go to school for 80 years after I ETS. So I was really like thinking out my options, and this doctor came to me, a colonel, a Fulbright colonel, came to me and like asked me like what's wrong and stuff, and like explained my options, and she was like, all right, well, you're gonna get old, you're gonna get 50, or you're gonna get like 40 or 50, but do you want to be 50 and do something that you love doing, or you want to be 50 and do something that you don't want to do, or don't want be somebody that you don't want to be? So at that like question and that kind of thinking like pushed me towards like, all right, I'm gonna do this because I really want to become a doctor. Um, you can totally be a PA, nurse practitioner. That's amazing, and you do a lot for patients. You do a lot for medical system and stuff like that. But for me, I wanted to, just like Harry said, I want to be in charge. I want to know, like I want to be the person that other people depend on. I want to be the person that diagnose the patient and like treat the patient and do everything for the patient. So in that regard, I wanted to become a doctor, and I've been pushing myself towards that.
I don't think age should, I mean, unless you have family and other commitment, age doesn't really matter that much. in med school. There are, students who are older than me when I entered medical school in 2020. So it's age is not the matter unless you really want to, unless you're coming in for the money. Let me put it that way. And you wanna become like vascular surgeon or some other surgical like specialty or whatever. That could take 10 plus years of training. Then I would, really go through your priorities and see if that really aligns with your goal. Um, but yeah, like age, I don't think that matters that much.
I completely agree with both. Similar to what's already been said, I had a mentor that was like, listen, you're going to be 40, 45 anyway. Why not be that doing what you want to do, what you want to spend your life doing? I'm 30, um, interested in neurosurgery. So by the time I graduate, I'll be 31, 32, and I'm looking at a minimum of 7 years for training. Um, but that's okay. I think as long as your health's intact and you don't have competing priorities, it's the rest of your life regardless. I think what's great that you'll have in contrast to traditional students, no matter which career path you choose to pursue, is you've spent time in a career where other people haven't. You have perspective of what it means to be in the workforce, what it means to be what we've all experienced, having a job or additional duties that we don't want to do. And so that'll give you a little bit more focus and an intention when it comes time to pick specifically how you want to spend the rest of your life. Whereas you'll have plenty of peers when you get to whatever level of training that you pursue who pick things for superfluous reasons that are completely superficial, that are not going to provide you satisfaction in life. And you have a chapter in your life where you've already experienced that, so it makes your decisions more informed.
Um, I agree with everything everyone has said. I think it's really important figuring out what you really want to do and why you want to get into whether you want to be a PA, nurse practitioner, or doctor, just depends on what you really want to do. I'm 35. Um, I think sometimes the age issue it pops up in my head, like, oh, you're trying to do this specialty, you have to add another 5, 6, 7 years on top of it. But I think what I realize that helps is that life continues to happen regardless of where you are, whether you are in medical school or whatever. You kind of have to live life outside of medical school as well. You, if you want to have kids, that's going to happen, whether as a medical student, as a resident, because you can't keep waiting. You kind of have to keep living life. Medical school is hard, don't get me wrong, but life also still happens outside of medicine. So, and I think the advantage we have is that you've had a life in having served, the pressures. So just it's a little bit easier to manage expectations outside of our school as well as being in school. So, I mean, I have someone who started with my cohort. I think he was 52 when we started school. So I mean, I think there's probably some 54-year-old who we also met like a year ahead of us when we came in. So I don't think it matters that much. But if it does, just remember you're still gonna have to live your life whilst you're in med school.
Yeah, I would just add that we've had somebody who started their pre-med journey at 47 and then somebody else who's 52 in medical school. So yeah, I mean, I think everybody has, touched it from their own journey on there. I think, yeah, did everybody speak? I'm sorry.
I didn't.
Oh,
I think my perspective is a little bit. I'm 32, second year med student, so I'll probably graduate. So I'll graduate at 34, about to turn 35. So because my birthday's in August. which means that if I did if I end up doing neurosurgery or even one of the surgical subspecialties, I wouldn't finish my training until 42 at the earliest, more or less. Probably on the more side, actually, with fellowships, etc. So I think that I agree that it's never too late in the sense that it's never too late if that's what you want to do. But maybe I think that it's definitely much harder when you're older, and I don't think that these things should be discounted. It actually spoke yesterday with one of my mentors in the neurosurgery department at Mount Sinai about my age, and he said, quite frankly, the people who've struggled the most in residency programs, what he's seen is those who are older, who have families, who have to juggle the kids when they get sick and spouses' careers or other things, or and who are maybe not as comfortable taking orders from people who are younger than them. I think that's an ego thing, and I don't think anyone here would have that issue. But it was just one of his observations. I personally, this is not to deter anyone. I feel like for me, who has an interest in surgery, that I'm right at the threshold where I think that if I had to delay my time in medicine much more, I don't think I would have done it, to be completely frank. And that's not and it's just a product of real life circumstances and financial considerations, etc. But that's just my story. I very much felt like I was at threshold for me. But again, Tyrone and I, we have a good friend who did orthopedic surgery. He graduated in his 40s last year, and he's now at Harvard, starting his orthopedic surgery training at Harvard in his 40s. So it may have been right for him. And my journey is obviously very specific to me only, but it is harder, frankly, going through it older. And all my friends right now are beginning to, make money and have families and settle into their careers. And I have instructors right now in medical school who are younger than me. Not just MDs, right? They've finished their training and they're now teaching my classes. And I see that they graduated college a year after me. And so you just have to eat a slice of humble pie, and that's fine, but it definitely makes you think a little bit.
Yeah, kind of going off of what Mike said. I'm 28, so finally I'm young at Sinai. I'm like the second oldest in my class, but here I'm young. Um, I think it can be an advantage starting when you're older. I think if I started med school when I was 22, I probably would have wanted to do something super competitive like neurosurgery or orthopedic surgery. But I'm getting married next year. I know what my priorities are. So I want to do family medicine partly because it's conducive for a good work-life balance. And I don't want to kind of revolve my life around medicine. I want to do the opposite, kind of revolve medicine around my life while still being able to help patients. So I think it could be an advantage coming in older and like having that perspective, because you can make decisions when you're 22 thinking this is what you want to do. And then you get married and you have kids, but you're working still, 70 hours a week. So yeah, for me, I think it's good, the priorities that I have. And everyone's different. I mean, tremendous amount of respect for everyone who wants to do surgery. We need you guys. But yeah, for me, I came in with kind of the different perspective. But yeah, I think age is certainly a factor and something to consider when you want to pursue these, I mean, medicine in general, but especially with the more competitive specialties with the longer training programs.
I think Noah absolutely hit it on the mark. I mean, I hope that this call isn't tailored towards just like things that are extremely arduous. There are 156 total subspecialties, and so in terms of what you want your life to look like, there's plenty of variability.
Yeah, I think there's actually a really interesting article that's I think it was in a Wall Street Journal, talked about that the older doctors are mad at the younger doctors because they want to have the work-life balance. And my response to that is each generation chooses their own destiny. They're the master of their own fate. And so If the next generation wants to have work-life balance, then you know what? They're going to make it happen because, don't live on someone else's, um, don't live on someone else's expectations, either societal or personal. So, I would just say that I'm an older pre-med, and I basically look at it this way. In some of my classes, I'm one of the oldest one in the class, but you know what? I bring in a whole world of experience and things that could run circles around people that are younger than me. But also, there's a humility in me as well, is that they could always teach me something. And I think if you're going into this career, at least, if you think that you're going to walk into any room and you're going to be it, then you're going to be eating a lot of humble pie, but also you're going to hurt people because um, if and this is something from an attending that I've heard, who's actually a chief now, is everybody contributes by age, even age, race, rank, you know, you know, uh, like if they're nurses, PAs, because they all have these experiences. And if then yes, if you're an MD, you walk in the room, you are the highest level of, and as an attending, you're the highest level, but everybody else has all these different experiences that you could learn from them. And humility is a big part of it. And I think humility is not an age thing because I've seen a lot of younger residents have humility, uh, have no humility, and and I've seen older ones that and so it's all relevant. I think if you're, pardon my French, if you're going to be someone who doesn't have humility, I don't think it's an age thing. I think it's just, but I think you are become more perspective, and and what uh, you said earlier is that you're gonna lay on your deathbed one day. Everybody's going to, every single one of us, unless someone has a trick or something. And um, you want to be able to be happy and joyful. And if that was being a physician, being a good father, so you don't want to die with any regrets. And so that's just my thing. That's my philosophy. And I've seen people that are older that are, you know, I've actually seen a resident who's 57 years old that was happy as a clam, and I've seen 26-year-old residents that are miserable. So, you know, that's just my philosophy. Um, so the next question is, this is something that comes up quite often, and I think it's one that I think we want to be able to ask is, this person's asking about medical schools strongly prefer and seek people that have prior research experience. Do medical schools like Einstein, Mount Sinai, Davis have a different expectations for non-tran applicants, particularly those of us that are completing post-bac science classes through community college where research opportunities are limited?
Seems like my school got name dropped. I was actually concerned about this myself when I was a post-bac student. That's why I also tried to get involved in like research experiences. But going into medical school, I didn't have any publications, but I did receive like some interview questions about my involvement in those research. As long as you can show that the things that you are doing research for is an integral part of your decision to go into medicine. That's all that they really care about. But again, um, most medical schools don't expect you to have like multiple publications as a pre-med student. I think what they're looking for is you're not doing research just for the sake of numbers' sake. And the more that you can tie in your research project with your reasoning behind why you're choosing to become a doctor instead of like a PA or nurse practitioner. That's the level that they're looking for. But if you have like poster presentations, if you have abstracts, like publications, those are bonuses, but they're not required. And if they were required, I wouldn't be in Einstein, is what I'm trying to say. So.
A handful of us. So to preface, Mount Sinai has the largest veteran community in the country in terms of medical schools. We have about 2 to 4 uh, veterans per year. And that's because they started an initiative about 5 to 6 years ago, specifically for active duty service members to apply without taking the MCAT. Mount Sinai is one of the handful of institutions that truly values non-traditional applicants. Um, and I say non-traditional because that reflects why everyone is on the call. Your experience in the military is something that they recognize as an asset that diversifies the student population, um, where the ROI is much higher than you just doing a publication to say that you did it. I would say, unless, to directly answer the question, unless you are looking to go MD, PhD on the doctor side, having research before you get into medical school is not really a priority. It's ultimately about whatever experiences you have, list them all, as long as you can tie them back to your why medicine, whether that's on the doctor side, whether it's nursing, whether it's PA. You have to find relevancy in what you're doing and be intentional about your actions so that it shines through on your application and then in your interviews.
Yeah, so I'm at Sinai too, but I didn't come in through the partnership program. I came in the normal pre-med way. Um, and I would say like when I was applying and doing all these things, research tended to come up in interviews at like the more, I guess, prestigious type of schools, Mount Sinai being one of them. So I think it depends on the school. I think some schools don't care if you have zero research, and some schools do. But like others have said, that doesn't mean you need a publication or anything. I did not have any publications, but I did work on a project for like a year that I could speak well about and had a good experience with. So if you just get involved in something and you could talk about it, I think that's good enough. Nobody's expecting you to have publications. And for those at community college, I actually started kind of my first research experience was at community college. They didn't have the same resources that Drexel did, but yeah, you can reach out to your professors in the science classes. And in community college, it was good too because the classes were really small and I got to know my professors. But if you want to get started, I'm sure a biology professor at community college can point you in the right direction. But in terms of it being necessary, I think for some schools you need to do something, but for many you don't. Some care more about like service and doing community service projects, things like that. There's other ways to stand out, but yeah, research isn't absolutely necessary.
I would just add this to the community college is that to teach at a community college in the US, you need to minimum have a master's degree. So all of those people that are your professors in biology, chemistry, have friends that have gone through these programs, and to they will have a network that could hook you in. But also, if you're going to community college, in an urban area, there's a lot of places that do research. Um, there's a research institutes slash universities, and you're just gonna have to, the proverbial hit the pavement. That's something you really want to do. Just email them with your resume and this and just want to add this one too as well is that some of you that are on the call that may think that, oh, as a veteran, my military experience doesn't matter. And my response would be that's not true. For example, Michael, was in charge of, you know, um, uh, navigating a multi-million dollar or billion-dollar ship and was responsible. So you have those responsibilities and those things in the military that most folks out in the typical pre-med doesn't have it. And one of the big things that I know, I was working on a couple of projects, and there was a lot of there was some veteran students, and my thing was I loved having veteran students because you would give them a a task to do, and they would go and get it done, and I didn't have to go back and check on them. Whereas other non-veterans, you would have to like check on them every 7 minutes. Like, did you do it? They would just find and do solve the problem. So I think, like definitely, putting that into it. And I think what a lot of the veteran centers have become really good is to put, working with them to put those skills that you've done in the military into what would be in public life. And I think that's a really big important as well. And so, you know, uh, I remember like reading someone's that was wanted to join our organization, put in their resume that, while they were in the military, they were in charge of 20 or 25 people or something, and making sure that so I think definitely put those in there as well and work with the Veteran Center to be able to work them right.
I'll add really quick, just like add something that Jovan was saying, like you have no idea how unique you are. We're veterans, we're in the military, so all our friends are veterans, all our friends are in the military. But especially to selection committee, acceptance committee, admission committee, like we bring such a different like application experiences to the school. So just for a fact that you are a veteran, like they look at you very differently. So general advice, I'll do research, I'll do shadowing, do volunteer, these are for just like regular college kids that just went to college from high school and then just applying to medical school. So just keep in mind that it is a good thing that we have experiences in research and other things, but just by being a veteran, they look at you very differently, and you have a higher chance of getting interviews and acceptance. And for me, I wrote on my application like good conduct medal. They're like, oh, what is this? Like such a being a good soldier and never had any problem. They're like, oh, that's so cool. ETS ARCOM, I put it in there. I put like global war on terrorism ribbon. They're like, what is this? Like, oh, joining the military through tough times. They're like, oh, that's so cool. So being a veteran, you bring such a different like story and like aspect and stuff like this. So it is good to follow general pre-med advice, but just like have a confidence that you're special and they look at you with a lot of like interesting perspectives. So just know that.
Yeah, and to like go off that, I agree with that 100%. Like during my interviews, one of my interviewers for Sinai was actually an Army doctor during the Vietnam War. So we didn't even talk about medicine. Like we just talked about like the veteran experience, and I had that kind of experience on a lot of interviews. Like they're interviewing you when you get to that point, they know academically and stuff, you qualify, a lot of people qualify. So they just want to hear about your experiences. And yeah, a lot of interviewers were just very interested to hear about like what that was like, where I went, what I learned, and stuff that's really had nothing to do with medicine. So yeah, it's definitely valued for sure.
I wanted to add one more thing. So I would definitely look at your dream schools, admission requirement. Every school has like different requirement in terms of like pre-med courses. You have to have a grade within certain number of years. That can be vastly different. And if you're planning on applying for DO schools, I think they would really appreciate seeing a letter recommendation from DO physician. So I would make it very strategic in that sense. Like, if you're so sure that you're going to apply for MD schools, that's cool. But if you're going to expand it to DO schools and you could potentially apply for other like Caribbean schools or something, I would do more research on that. But definitely do more clinical experience if you don't have much hours. At Columbia, they required us, I think, 120 something hours per year or as a total during our post-bac time to have certain clinical experience at that time. I was a medic. I already had several thousand hours of clinical experience by the time I went to Columbia. So I just solely focused on research experience, but I think medical school will really appreciate to see a candidate working with patient and physician at the same time. So this could be, medical scribe, rather than just being an EMT, never have an interaction with physician, Not saying EMT is not a great experience, but if I could pick one or the other, I would definitely pick something that can, expose you to working environment where physicians are always there. So make it, have that in mind when you're picking experience, because I know with school and everything, time is very valuable and you only have limited time. So you want to utilize it as much as you can.
Only thing I'll quickly add is I think it's just I don't think the research is so critical as being productive. I think that as long if you have space in your CV where it's kind of dead space, that'd be more concerning. But it doesn't necessarily have to be filled with research. I think as long as you're involved in something, you're productive doing something, whether that's other academic endeavors, charitable work, community service, leading organizations, something, then that shows that you're engaged and constantly being engaged. I just think that my perspective, because I've spent a little bit of time reviewing applications, both actually at the med school level and also for some other programs in the past. What I've found to be most concerning, both for myself when I see CVs and applications, and also from other people, is that people aren't so concerned about your specific scientific publications, but they are concerned that if you took time off to do effectively, for lack of a better word, nothing. I think that if you substituted scientific publications for community service, that actually may be depending on the leadership role that you took in those endeavors. But if it's dead space, then that'd be more concerning.
And I would just add is anybody that tells you you need to have publications to get into medical school, they are lying to you. They are lying to you like, I don't know, they're lying to you like a bookie lies to you. Um, to get your name on a publication is really, really hard. First of all, it requires that all of the other people, like the graduate students, the postdocs, all the people like it's really, really hard to get your name on a publication. First of all, there's a lot of people that are ahead of you. They may be kind that you say you've added to this to put it on there. So and then getting a publication is something that is very, very difficult. So anybody that's lied to you about this, you need to do some sort of research and that you could talk about it. I know that one of the other deans that spoke, he said, they interviewed somebody who had a publication, and then we asked them uh, about their research, and they couldn't say it, and that was kind of a red flag. And the reason is the people that have family members that are researchers or doctors put their family friends or their kids or whatever on research projects, and that's why like being a first gen is really hard, but that's happened too as well. And so just and now with the Google machine you could find out who's related to who. So just to add that out there is to get your name on a publication is really, really hard. And to even get a publication for somebody who has a PhD or an MD, it's really hard as well. So please, like, I want to reiterate this is that yes, research is an important part of learning in medicine, but getting into medical school, unless you look at the mission and what Julia said, that unless you look at the mission of the medical school that says, we are research driven, like one of them, Stanford. Stanford, if you don't have research, you're just not gonna, it's gonna be really, really hard because they're a research school, and so some of the schools that like Washington University, that's another one. So you have to look at the schools, and if research is in their mission statement, then you need to have it. But um anyone else wants to add the research part to this?
Sure, I can add a little bit. So I had zero research. Just as straight off the bat. I had zero research experience. So you, I was very strategic in the schools that I applied for. I would say from experience, maybe a couple of schools, like maybe one or two schools asked if I had any research. Besides that, there was no mention of any research in any of my interviews. And but I did pretty well with getting interviews in the schools that I got accepted to. So um, I think it's great to have research. If you have it and know how to talk about it, it's fantastic. But it is not the end of the world if you don't have it. Just be mindful in the schools that you choose. Because I'm sure if you, I think Sinai asked about research. Uh, I don't even Einstein, I don't think they asked me any questions about it, not Rutgers. So it's great if you have it, but if you don't, you just make sure you talk about your experiences and talk about it a lot. I had a lot of clinical experience, so that was mostly what we talked about in most of my interviews.
Um, awesome. Anyone else wants to add? So Harry had to jump off, but he shared his contact. Um, anyone else wants to talk about research? Now, somebody else asked, can you get research in medical school? And how hard is that?
Sinai, at least, it's so easy. They're always looking for students to join the research team. You'll get emails from residents and seniors, about research experience. So it's really easy compared to when you're trying to find it during undergrad or pre-med, post-med pre-med. So I wouldn't worry too much about getting involved in research once you get into med school.
Tons of opportunities. Um, and depending on your specialty interests, you can just reach out to professors, and physicians within the field, or it's very, very easy to make contact through student affinity groups with more senior medical students who will help mentor you. That's what happened to me within my first few weeks of medical school. I was able to reach out to uh, more senior medical students and immediately was thrown into projects. It's very easy once you're within the system with the resources at your disposal.
Yeah, to add, I'm just a first year at Sinai, but to add to that, like I wasn't even looking at getting involved in research anytime soon, but Sinai has these like they're no credit courses, they're just like extra ones you could take. And I signed up for one and like I didn't even realize like it's kind of a research thing. So like it's so easy that I accidentally found research that like I'm now starting to do. Like it's and then all my classmates are all like getting involved in research too. It's yeah, it's not like undergrad at all.
And if you are a veteran, the VA hospital is always looking for veteran volunteers as well. So when I was an undergrad, I was volunteering with the Manhattan VA. I was working with the research team, just getting the agreement forms and stuff like that. But at Sinai, we're affiliated with the Bronx VA. So now I'm doing research with the Bronx VA. So yeah, if you're a veteran, they'll love you. They'll, love to have you in the team.
Yeah, and I think for a veteran is really much easier to get through the VA process because for you to walk into a VA facility, it requires an act of, it's really tough. And so as a veteran, it's a lot easier to get through the clearances for uh to get, because you need to pass the clear training and then you need to get it back. So as a veteran, that's a really, and a lot of VAs, all the VAs do research. Um, anyone else wants to add to this?
Yeah, I'll just offer kind of a counterpoint. I think your ability to be productive when it comes to research is highly dependent on where you go to school. The academic institutions, like most of the people who are speaking here about Sinai, are going to have more research than you can possibly accomplish. There's be a plethora of opportunities because the academic programs have all academic attendings and departments who make money based off of the amount of research that they complete and publish. There are plenty of medical schools in the country um, that don't have environments that are very conducive to research being done, whether that be like they're just like operationally focused or they're just not a higher tier program. And so that's going to force you to um, reach out third party or to people at other institutions to get involved. And it, the truth is, it will be harder for you to get involved in research. That's just a reality based off of where you go. I think as a qualifier to that, this is way down the line, but when you get to the point of applying for residency, um, institutions usually do consider where you went to school in terms of the number of publications that you have. So if you went to like a Harvard or a Johns Hopkins or Columbia, they're expecting that you have a lot of publications because you're in an environment that is constantly inundating students with publications. Whereas if you go somewhere that doesn't have those, they're going to consider that in your overall application. So if you find yourself in kind of a research desert, it's totally okay. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try for opportunities, but where you go does factor into consideration of your overall outcome.
And Tyrone just made me think of one thing. There, like he's totally correct that there are some schools that where research is not as critical to the culture or the curriculum. And I'm currently in lab groups here at Mount Sinai with students from those schools who say, "Hey, we don't have the resources that a school like Mount Sinai may. Is it possible we could join your lab group and find our home, our research home elsewhere?" And so, if you happen to be at one of those schools, it is totally. I mean, it happens all the time where you can reach out to professors at other institutions to support your research. And I see that all the time where I work with students, med students from really around the country whom I've never met, who are part of our lab group because they say, hey, we're interested in contributing, but we just don't have the home resources like your institution does. And honestly, they're fantastic because they're so motivated to get things done.
Just one other thing I wanted to add. Whether you find yourself at a research productive or a non-research productive school, um, people aren't just going to put the opportunities in your lap. You've got to be persistent, especially if you're interested in something that leans competitive. I think Mike and I, as well as probably others, can attest to that. My first year, in order to get involved in neurosurgery research, I had to email the same attending 6 or 7 times before getting a reply. They're just like very busy. Um, and it's not personal. They're not out to get you, but if people are getting hundreds of emails a day, despite also having to be in clinic, the operating room, you sometimes have to be um, a bit of a MacGyver in terms of either being persistent or like showing up at their office, finding out if they have a secretary. And that's also where you can also leverage more senior students who already have the in with those different people in their labs.
The other question that somebody's asking is, do you know that there's any specific number of seats saved for U.S. military institutional partnership programs? Um, and I'm not sure the answer.
Yeah, so I guess we can only speak to, for the some of us that are Sinai, can only speak to Sinai's program. Um, a few of us also help out with like applications to the IP program as well as traditional veteran and service member applications every year. And from past experience, there's never been a quota, like a certain number of seats that are allotted to veterans or service members. And if that wasn't the case before, it's definitely not the case now with the overturning of, uh,
Supreme Court.
yes, thank you, Supreme Court affirmative action ruling. So that would technically be like officially illegal. Obviously, programs, institutions find ways to ensure diversity in whatever you want that to mean. Um, I will say the way Sinai's program works is that they have the institutional partnership program as well as like FlexMed, which is a pathway for non-traditional applicants. And the way it works is they review those pool of candidates separately, but you're still competing against the pool of people who apply traditionally. Um, so not only do you have to be someone that they want from that pool, but you're evaluated against the normal pathway as well. So nothing's guaranteed. It ebbs and flows every year, and it's just based off of the strength of candidates.
Yeah, and not the IP program, but Quinnipiac specifically is like a very veteran-friendly med school. When I was applying to med school, there's this like thing called MSAR. It has the stats on like every stat for every school. Most schools like matriculating class has like 0 to 2% of veterans, and Quinnipiac's been consistently like 6 to 8% for the past like 4 years. So yeah, they accept a lot of veterans. They accepted me. I just chose Sinai, but yeah, they like really. It seems like has an effort to accept veterans because the IP program at Sinai is like very specific to people transitioning out from mostly being officers because you need a degree already. But for veterans who are now like undergrad trying to get their bachelor's, Quinnipiac's a good school to look at.
Um, this is a question somebody else asked was when you guys are for residency, is being a veteran, has that hindered or hindered that helped you?
Residency?
Yeah, applying to residency.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that's something that I can answer because I've been getting a lot of residence interviews, and I can talk about like specific questions I got, but I can talk about in general, like what my residency interviews have been going as a veteran. I think that like more than medical school, residency programs love veterans in a way that medical school, they're pretty much like looking in if you're going to be a good student. But residency programs, they are trying to select and pick residents as their employees. So we are getting a job. So residency is pretty much like getting a job at a certain place, and they can, well, at least 3, 4, or sometimes 6, 7 years. So they're very careful at picking personality and some characteristics and things like that. And they really appreciate veterans as team players. And also we have experience of working because a lot of medical students, they never worked a day in their lives. Sometimes they just graduate from high school, college, come to medical school, no work experience. So for residency directors and admission committee to find out if that person is going to be a good employee, they have no idea. But if veterans have a great military records, honorable discharge with a bunch of awards, they know that veteran can work in a team occupational environment and a team setting as well, because all military, we have to work in teams. So one of the questions that I get asked the most is, are you a team player? Or what would you do if there is any disagreement? Or how would you resolve as a leader? Or if you see your coworker like slacking, what would you do? So I'm getting a lot of questions like that. That's like something that I was doing every single day as a sergeant in the army. Like, oh, the soldier is slacking. What should I do? So I was like answering. So my answer was like, hey, I don't know, because that's just exactly what happened to me too. Some soldiers like slacking. Should I like go yell at the soldier? Because a lot of people, civilians, think that like all we do is yelling, like what, stand up straight or like do this and do that. But no, actually, as a sergeant, a training environment is a little different. The boot camp and basic training is a little different. But in a real like a work environment, like I would, go and find out if the house soldier is doing, hey, like, is everything is okay? Is your family okay? Is your marriage okay? Is your kid okay? So yeah, I pretty much said the same thing to a lot of interviewers that if somebody's slacking, I would get to know the person, I will find out if the person needs any help, like professionally, or need to just vent about something, or getting along with the other coworkers. So a lot of them like really like that. So yeah, as a veteran, like you will do way better at residency interviews than medical school interviews. So I would consider myself mediocre or mediocre applicant. But yeah, I'm getting a lot of great reviews from my interviews. I'm getting a lot of interview invites as well. So I think that that's because they see me as a veteran. That- so
Dude, you're not.
I will have to disagree with that statement. You're not a mediocre applicant, and I know it because how I know how hard you worked in the past 4 years.
thank you.
So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think something that it's hard to take account for or like recognize because it's just your lived experience is how well you can operate within a work environment. Um, on your standardized exams that you take through medical school, whether it's step one to step two, surprisingly, a significant portion of it are ethics questions that don't require any sort of like medical scientific foundation. It's literally a patient does this or a coworker does this, how would you handle it? And you would be surprised. There's plenty of like practice third-party resources that we have, and after you answer a question, it shows you the breakdown of how people have answered. You would be surprised how many people get these questions wrong that are just to all of us are just common sense. And you have so many skills that you're going to be able to leverage and be able to articulate that seem just commonsensical to you that your peers do not because they've never had to work in an environment. It's like very easy. Most, I would say, like at Sinai, for example, most of our peers are fantastic people. But I think up until you get into residency, which is an actual job, it's very easy for a lot of people to have kept their head down, may have been selfish, not considered people around them in order to be successful to get to the point of medical school. Like as long as you can be productive and be a good test taker and get good grades, and you come from and you're in an environment that has resources that like make you a strong candidate, you can get into med school somewhere. But to be successful in the work environment, it's a little bit different. And that's something that we all have been successful already at.
Yeah, I could just add just one more thing is where I work at as an ER tech, for residency, they want like nurses and techs on their committees slash interviews. Like we don't have a vote, but we just give our feedback through the interviews. And one person came in and who was a veteran and I just looked at the application and it's like, well, I don't know, he wasn't really this and this. And so they're like, he was very assertive in his interviews and stuff. And then I looked on the resume and they had like a thing that said silver star. And I'm like, that's a pretty big deal, guys. Like, they're like, well, we don't know what it is. And so I would just say always like tout what your things are. And I had to like Google what the silver star was. I think it's like the second or the third highest thing you could get in the army, right? I remember it was a pretty big deal, and then we started like it's like a well, you guys could explain it. I was never in the military, so can you explain what that is? You guys
But
could explain that, but I just said it's a big BFD, but do you guys want to explain what that is?
To be honest, I don't really remember, but what I will say is like any award that you get in the military is an example of you doing something exemplary in a team environment. And so whether it's the Medal of Honor or it's a good conduct medal, that's something that's going to stand out and that you're going to be able to speak to, whether it's your med school interviews, whether your residency interview, and it's going to stand out in contrast to people who've only have ever done school.
And then any award you get in the military, like for residency application, there is like award section where you write the title of the award and then why, like how you receive that award, how you earn the reward. So that's like your chance, like veterans a chance. It's like place where veterans should shine because we get ribbons, medals, a lot of awards for just like being in the military, or sometimes you have to do the leadership role and then they give you award and things like that. An ETS award, everybody gets an award. But for me, I wrote and yeah, just like the way you describe sometimes is like sounds great. That for us, maybe it's like everybody has to do it, but for people who review veterans application, it sounds amazing. You know, like, oh, I did this for my team, or as a leader, as a sergeant, as a non-commissioned officer, as an officer, I did this for my unit. And I was recognized for my work and leading, you know, my unit and leading like, or you can be specific, like 40, 50, 100, 150. So they really like that. So use that section. You'll see it, but use this section to like shine.
Also,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Um, was that JST, the military education that you do online, that actually counts as an education part. And you can send in the transcript to the uh MCAS, right? And then they'll upload the transcript for you. So if you're still in the military right now, you wanna, you know, knock out some classes for your promotion or whatever, make sure to include that for your medical school application because that counts.
Yeah, I could just add that where, like I said, I've worked at a few places that have had veterans in residency and they've all been successful and done really well, and most of them end up becoming chief resident. So I say that's not your biggest fear to do that. Um, Somebody else wanted to ask about the transition. How is the transition from military life to civilian life, and how have you been able to manage that?
I can start. So for me, um, you know, I loved it actually, getting out of the military. Like, you know, living in the barracks and they do the barracks check, you know, like unannounced, like sergeants like barging in your barracks and just like open your drawers and stuff like that. And I'm like so stressed out every day. And feel like I was you know, I mean like I was in a good unit and sometimes I was in a bad unit where I constantly worked, you know. I was at a hospital at one point and like I have to go in at 7 o'clock and work until 7 12-hour shift. But sometimes we were supposed to the PT on our own, but some NCOs come in and they're like, no, you're a soldier. We have to do PT together. So I wake up at like 3:30 in the morning and do PT, you know, like I got like no personal time. But anyways, I love the transitioning out of the military to civilian one. And I go to school. A lot of my classmates complain like, oh, the bio class, like, oh, we have to study this amount. I'm like, it's cool. Now I love it. So I mean, but the only thing that I missed was my friends, my buddies, my battles in the military. So, you know, the one thing that I struggle is I was always at work in the military and I was with like my buddies and friends. I lived in the barracks and like I had friends like next door all the time. So at all time I was surrounded by my friends, who I consider my friends in battles. But in the civilian world, you don't have that. You know, you have to make friends on your own. You don't go to a unit and you start becoming friends with your friends and stuff like that. So, yeah. So that was again going back to like getting connected with the veteran community. They're going through the same transition. They all miss like being in a structured environment and stuff like that. So I went to Hunter College and was able to find the veteran club and community, and I was able to make friends through it that way. So that helped me a lot.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean the transition is tough. I also agree, like the grad, you know, when I was getting out, all these like staff NCOs and stuff were like, you're gonna regret it, you're gonna be coming back. And like I was telling them my plan and they were like, you're not gonna be able to do any of that. You're gonna be begging to come back in. The grass isn't greener, and like the grass is much greener. Um, not everyone feels that way. I feel that way, but it's still a tough transition because I had so much structure and like responsibility. You kind of have a purpose, and then like literally in one day, like all that is gone. One day I'm a sergeant, the next day I'm like not even a college freshman. I just like missed the first semester, so I'm just like waiting at home, like literally nothing to do. Um, but I was lucky, I had a good support system. I moved back home. I had a lot of friends who were graduating college, and they moved back home. So yeah, that helped. And then kind of I had a goal. I think that really helped. I think if you don't have direction, um, it can be really tough and really isolating. But if you do, then yeah, it's tough, but it's definitely doable. And if you have a support system, then yeah, that makes it a lot easier. And like Sanjay said, like you're with your best friends all the time, and then you see them once a year. So that's tough. But yeah, it's civilian life is the good life, and in my opinion, I agree. When I think things are bad, I'm studying for an exam or whatever, I'm like, I have a bed to sleep in, I have heat, I have air conditioning, I have a shower. Like these were things I prayed for at certain times when I was in the Marines. So yeah, it's the good life. And I don't need to get a haircut every week. So I enjoy that as well.
Well, until you go bald, then you don't have to worry. But you have a nice set of hair, so Um,
Alrighty, so for our next question, someone asked in the chat, how can I find veteran research professors in the projects at Mount Sinai? I'm interested in continuing my own research, but want to know if there's an opportunity for me to merge my interest with a professor.
I would say that's definitely possible. Mount Sinai has a employee readiness group specifically of faculty that have a military background that you can just Google search, and it lists everyone there that is currently on staff and is practicing who's also has a military background. You can reach out to our organization. I'll drop our or any of us here at Sinai would be happy to like connect you, set you up, at least connect you with someone who knows if we don't know. I'd also say don't limit yourself to military faculty. There are so many people out there, and I think one of the things that makes transition harder for vets is you don't want to leave the bubble because it's what you're used to, it's where you're comfortable, and that's totally okay. But every decision you make comes with risks, and you are severely limiting yourself if you're only willing or interested to work with people who are like-minded in terms of like your experiences. So I would say instead maybe take an opportunity to figure out what you think you're interested in or what sounds cool to you. It could literally be that simple. What sounds cool to you? Um, Reach out to us. We'll connect you with people there, or just Google search. You can work in those departments and just start shooting emails. Start calling their office. Figure out who the secretary is. That's how you get in. And as long as you like are sincere in your interests, people will be more than willing if they have the time to support you however they can. But yeah, I think towards this call, once it ends, we'll all drop like our contacts and please just reach out anytime.
Yeah, and if you're if you just want to get involved with the veteran stuff, you can always go to like each VA hospital has a volunteer office coordinator. So just walk in or make a call or email the volunteer coordinator. They will know what kind of project that's going on or what kind of place you can volunteer. So once you get the foot into the VA system and get to know some doctors, and you can branch off and then network that way. So um, and it's always great to have like something with the VA on your resume, either that's a research volunteer that kind of goes with your theme and your story. So
Yeah, this is more, I mean, I'm sure the New York VA has this too, but I volunteered at the Philly VA for like a year and a half, and the VA website has like an application for becoming a volunteer. So yeah, it's pretty easy to get involved. I think in New York it's probably the same.
awesome. The other question somebody else wanted to ask is, what did you guys do to learn to get your study skills and learning while starting college? How did you guys manage that? How did you all manage that?
I personally had like academic calendar that I created on my Google Calendar. I kind of picked out certain classes that I really want to focus on, and figure out how many hours I need to put in for each classes, and just not, place those study hours on my calendar. And one of my other friend, John Gonzaga, he also the similar thing during postbac program. I think, having that dedicated time on your calendar and make sure you really strictly follow that is important, because, we're coming from military, uh, that doesn't really require so much of a study environment, to pre-med that requires study all the time. I would also utilize any TA hours. If there are some special study hours going on, I also put that on my calendar. But really like allocating like what's important, and putting your hours into that is very, very important. I think I was studying almost every day. Didn't have much time off during my time at postbac. But also like remember to take break in between, because I definitely felt burnout like after like a year or so, when the linkage application started. I started to feel that. So don't forget to take a break once a week, or a little bit at a time, or having some time with family and friends. But yeah, what's important is your grade during pre-med, because GPA can't be altered unless you take more classes, and that's gonna cost you more time and money. So yeah.
Yeah, when I was getting out of the Marines, I was pretty insecure about like whether I'd be able to succeed in college because I was a terrible student in high school. Like I knew I was joining the Marines, so I like never studied, like never did my homework. I think I graduated with like a 2.6 GPA. But when I got out of the Marines, I was like, I have to learn how to study. So I found a YouTube channel. It's called Med School Insiders. And there was a lot of good information on that. So that really helped. And then for med school, Reddit Reddit has never failed me once. I followed the advice of Reddit, and I mean, I'm only an M1, but it's worked out so far. So like if you're on Reddit, which I'm sure some of you are, it can make you neurotic, so take everything with a grain of salt, but there's some good advice out there. And I also use that to like help study for the MCAT and what like strategies and resources too. Yeah.
I would say you gotta like adapt and overcome. Because organic chemistry might be different than biology. Biology might be different than physics. So you have to like that's great to have like a studying schedule and like allotting studying time and stuff like that. But at the same time, like your resources, using what kind of resources you're using. Should I like read textbook, or should I do more questions, practice exams and things like that? So each class, even like Chem 1 and Chem 2 are kind of different. You gotta use like different skills. So yeah, you just have to adapt whenever you go to new classes and medical schools like that. Sometimes this block you have to study a certain way, and the other block you have to do certain the other way. So yeah, it's just you have to figure out what works best for you for specific course and continue. And if that doesn't work, change and get help from professors and TAs and stuff like that. So the adaptability for each class.
Yeah, I could just say that study skills is an art, and it's something that's developed over time. It's not some magic click or a 30-second TikTok message, it takes work and discipline, and I think as veterans, y'all have you know that as well. um, quite as well. And so, yeah, yeah, Khan Academy. Julie said Khan Academy is my savior. I love, I've actually been at a conference he spoke at. I went and hugged him, but that's a whole different thing. But yeah, Khan Academy. There's a lot of resources and there's a lot of great videos on YouTube. I found a bunch of things on YouTube that literally saved me. Um, but yeah. Um, we're at the 11:30 mark, and so I wanted to just ask last question is if you had to go back in time and give yourself an advice when you were a pre-med student, what would it be? What would it be?
I got one. I wouldn't be too scared. I was too scared. I was too insecure about my grades and my background, my application. I end up like applying too many medical school, like wasting a lot of money. I should have had a faith in myself. I should have yeah, just like be confident in myself. I was too insecure sometimes and did things too much, wasted too much money and time in things that I should have not. So
Definitely ask for help. If you feel like you're stuck or you feel insecure, or just simply like lonely because you're one of the oldest student in the class and then you don't have any friends. There are many veterans who are willing to help out. There's a huge community, of course, online, that are willing to really help you out, in terms of pre-med application, advice and all the other stuff, like in terms of like even seeking for veterans benefit. So, if you feel like you're stuck or just need someone to talk to, there's always another veteran who's willing to help out there. So don't be afraid to ask for help. I know it can be tough sometimes. You're coming out of the military, you are holding what kind of rank in service, but it's okay to ask for help, and there's a lot of us who are willing to help. So just wanted to mention that.
I'm gonna echo what Sanjay said. It's just like be more confident. I also applied to too many schools. I didn't complete like 10 secondaries because I was burnt out. And there were schools I was applying to that like I never would have wanted to go to anyway. They were in like the middle of, the like a rural area, which is not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in a city. So I did waste time and money and was very neurotic. Yeah, so I mean it's easy to say that in retrospect. It's hard to do when you're in the moment, but yeah, I wish I could have known how things would have went, but I could have never known that. So yeah, do with that what you will.
I think applying to medical school requires you to be neurotic. That's a prerequisite.
Yeah, definitely.
I think based off of what the three have already said, as far as trusting yourself and having some confidence, with that as a baseline, I would tell you to do your best to be present and enjoy where you are. I think because of like the neuroticism that's associated with like trying to get into medical school, you're just constantly looking forward. And although like your responsibilities shift once you get out and you become a student, um, there are opportunities where whether it's like spending time with your peers in the military, like everyone's talked about, the fond memories that are associated with service, you're never going to be in an environment like that again. Um, if you're in a situation where you can have some downtime, whether it's in what you prefer or not, in between starting school and leaving the military, do your best to like maximize that, because once you become a medical student, your time is not a plenty. So do your best to make good memories while you can. As long as you continue to work hard, you persistence will get you to where you want to be, even if it's not on the timeline that you prefer. Um, and enjoy what you have. It goes very quick, very, very quick. I remember being on these panels as a pre-med student and thinking it was so far away. And to think now, I'm almost done, like seeing how far Julia is. And I remember her being like a first year on, I was like this nervous applicant, future applicant, it flies by. So enjoy enjoy the journey.
Yeah, I'm just gonna echo everything everyone has said. But I think for me, I would have spent a lot more time, um, and had more fun. Because med school's, you have to learn to balance stuff really, really well. Um, so I would have spent more time just enjoying it and had more fun. Spend time with family, as much as you can, because it gets harder and harder as time goes. Um, and for me, I think when I was studying for the MCAT, I used way too many resources, because there's so much out there. Um, and I think it would have benefited me a lot more if I had concentrated on specific study materials instead of just trying to get everything. And yeah, thanks.
I just have one last thing to add. If you're at community college, like I was very insecure that being like starting at a community college would be a red flag on my application. And it's not at all. Like nobody cares. If you do well in community college and then you transfer and you do well at a 4-year school, there's it honestly even adds to your experience and your story. It's not something that you need to worry about. So I wish somebody told me that when I was applying.
Yeah, no, that's one of the reasons we started this organization.
One last
All righty, go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry, I'm sorry.
one last plug. This is a great organization, and like I would say, absolutely take advantage of this. In addition to the Service to Schools, another great organization where you submit an application with their interest, and they do their best to pair you with someone who's further along in the journey that you want for yourself. So please, please, I think whether it was said or not, I think something that is like resounding amongst all of us is that do your best to take advantage of the resources available to you. Like people are creating these organizations like this one here to provide people insight that we didn't have when we were in your shoes. So please take advantage of it. Don't be afraid to ask questions, even if you feel that they're stupid questions. We've all been there and we're here to support. So please, please take advantage.
Well, thanks everyone for coming. I wanted to wish everyone a happy Veterans Day coming up. And so thank you again for first of all for your service. And thank you for taking time of your Saturday to join us. And hopefully we could have you come again, and best of luck in all your future journeys in where you're all going. So thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.